Mr. Pop Fly himself, founder numero dos, Ben.
My dealers use Jitterbug.
Baseball Ben, what's going on, man?
Not a lot, my friend. How are you holding up?
Doing all right, man. Doing all right.
You know who else uses a Jitterbug? Let's get out the old binoculars, have a look down that foul line, and see what's going on.
Ladies and gentlemen, now batting cleanup for the Outfielder Podcast, number 3, the great Sam Bino.
Welcome back, Sam.
Happy day 50?
53, something like that. Just absurd.
It all runs together.
It does. It really does. And it's easy to do because it's just monotony over and over again. But truthfully, like, I haven't really been too bothered by all this. I like being at home.
I do like my home. I like being home. I really like going into the office. I'm a much better worker that way.
Interesting. Ben, where do you
I
follow
really
this?
like having the ability to go somewhere if I want to and then choose to stay at home. But the fact that I've eliminated that choice upsets me.
Technically, you can go somewhere, but it's just not open and free like it normally is.
No, you can't. You know, I could, yeah, I can, like lift my car, but that doesn't mean I'm going to or it's a good idea.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that. There's zero chance you can lift your car.
No, you idiot. Like with a lift kit.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I heard, yeah.
You heard what I heard, right?
Like mom on cocaine lifting car to save a child or something.
Oh, yeah, okay. This
Angel
show's
Dust
gotten
Sam.
weird. I miss baseball.
No,
miss
you know what
baseball.
really pisses me off is that, like, it's the parenting while expected to work. That's the hard part.
It's got to be tough. Like, that is one thing that I'm grateful for is that I don't have kids through this because I feel like just keeping them occupied would be the worst thing in the world. It's hard enough to keep myself occupied.
Yeah, like, and on the weekends it's better because it's like, cool, we can watch TV or play outside, or I'm going to turn on the sprinklers and you can run through it. But, like, let me take this conference call, give this presentation while also teaching division to a second grader. You know, like, there's just a lot there.
While relearning division yourself to be able to
Yeah.
teach said. Yeah.
Yeah, I know how to divide because of my iPhone.
That's kind
Take
of
that, middle school math teacher who said we'd never walk around with calculators in our pockets. Who looks dumb now?
that's got a show open written all over it. Some piece of that spliced together, I'm sure.
God, that's just so true, though. I had that said to me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I still carried around my TI-83 all the time and was proud of it even then. And now it's even easier than that.
Right. And, we have reached the point in quarantine where, gentlemen, I want to show this off to you. Guess who had their spouse give them a haircut?
Oh.
You.
This guy.
Looks pretty good.
It does look good.
Compliments
That's a-
to both of you.
Got the clippers that I would normally use on the dog.
Okay.
And just had her do a one on the sides and the back. I almost went with a mohawk, but then I remembered I'm in my 30s, and so I didn't.
It's a newer look for you, though, right? You're shorter on the sides and longer on the top. That's a little newer, right?
Yeah, well, normally when I do the short on the sides, I do have them take some off the top, but I didn't want to have to trust my wife's scissor work.
Right.
Yeah. And this is a good opportunity to try something new.
Absolutely. Speaking of haircuts, Sam, you're looking fresh. What's going on?
Yeah, I got a haircut also. My spouse did not do it. I got a black market haircut.
Oh.
We're supposed to be observing social distancing even in Georgia. But my buddy's sister-in-law, she cuts hair for a living, and her salon had been closed up until this last Friday. So she rounded up all the people in my buddy's neighborhood, and just was charging for haircuts, right outside. Just put a stool right in front of my buddy's house and had, mask and gloves, and was cleaning the tools after every person and charging $25 a pop. So I went and got a real haircut.
Okay. I mean, it's about as sanitary as you could do it, right?
Yeah. I mean, did I need to do that? No. Am I putting everyone at risk by doing so?
Absolutely.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely. No, you're
Everyone?
Oh no, everybody, dude. You're the cause and the effect of this thing. That's for
Okay,
sure.
Patient
well.
zero over there.
Whatever. There's like 200 million people with it or something. Don't worry about it.
So at first, whenever you were saying that she set the stool up, and you said she set the stool up outside of my buddy's house, I thought you meant like a speakeasy type situation where it's like you got to go like knock on the door a certain way to be able to get in, that kind of deal.
But it's just the door panel on the sidewalk. Like there's no walls. It's just the door.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, that's actually how I got my last tattoo, was just in someone's yard.
Yeah, that'll
Just
happen.
kidding.
See, I'm fortunate that I don't really grow any hair anymore, so it's pretty easy for me just to take the clippers and shave my own head, and I've been doing it for like I don't know, a couple of years now because I looked at it and I was like, why am I spending $25 to get my head buzzed? I can do that myself.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, it's fine. It's practical. Saving money
gonna-
over here.
I'm gonna take my better genetics and I'm gonna keep that card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, it is what it is. I'm gonna fucking own it because what else are you gonna do? Look like an asshole?
That's good. No,
This
I
was
love
actually, This was actually the best haircut I've gotten in a while. I usually go over to Great Clips, spend 15 smackaroos, and get a real piece of shit haircut. It's different every time. And
Yeah.
this one was good.
it. Did you tip pretty well? Because I feel
I
like you
did.
have to.
I gave her 40 on a $25 cut.
That's
Okay.
good. That's pretty
That's
good.
good.
I'm like, thanks for doing this. Thanks for risking getting sick.
How many people's
Here's
hair
40
did
bucks.
she cut?
So my buddy's neighborhood is like it's like a loop road. So there's one way in and then it goes all the way around to the same entrance exit.
Okay.
And so they basically like block the road off after 6. And there's kids and adults walking around everywhere. Like everyone is social distancing, but everyone's outside. I think she probably cut like 35 people's hair.
Wow.
Damn.
Good for her.
She
That's
said
awesome.
she's going to do it again this weekend, even though they opened up her salon on Friday.
Well, she doesn't have to charge rent, or she doesn't have to like pay studio space.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing it right in the front yard. You're just maximizing your cost savings right there. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a
But
brilliant model.
I'm sure Ben would agree that like it makes a huge difference getting a haircut when you really need it. It's like liberating.
Oh, for sure.
I do feel better.
I mean,
I'm gonna say that getting a fresh haircut and like the niceness around the ears, that's almost as passionate as I am about having my yard look nice. And so I had my crew come by today. They did a great job, and I've said it before on this podcast, I'll say it again. Edging makes the yard. Change my mind.
well, so I have a question first and foremost. You had the crew come by, so you had like the lawn crew come do it. You didn't do it.
Since I bought this house, yes, because when I lived in the tiny house,
It's unacceptable.
oh, shut up. You bougie, I'm going to shave my own head, son of a bitch. Like,
Bougie, I'm the one that mows my own lawn.
I've mowed my own lawn. I'm in my 30s, Justin. What am I, a 15-year-old with a paper route?
I don't know. You're the one paying to get your lawn mowed. That's all I know. Anyway, go on.
And it looks choice. I tell you what, let's do this. Y'all, this week, we're going to put pictures on social media, and y'all pick whose yard looks the best between J-Max, Sam, and I.
I mean, I'm gonna lose this no matter what happens
You're
because
both going to lose. There's no way.
I mean, I edged my lawn the other day. Everything looks as nice as it can, but it still hasn't really grown in yet. It doesn't nearly look like what I presume Sam's look like and what yours looks like, Ben. So
Yeah,
we'll put
mine
them up.
looks
People can vote.
terrific.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's a slaughter.
speaking of things that I am upset about, do you have a moment for me to rail on something baseball related?
Always, because I miss
Okay.
baseball. I'm going to say that a lot.
Okay, so I too miss baseball, and let's just go this. So, a few months back, when we talked about like can this happen, and before we even came up with our own baseball bracket challenge that we were doing, I proposed the question and said, God, it would be really cool if I had a way to simulate every team's all-stars playing each other to see who has the best of all time. Do y'all remember me saying this?
Vaguely.
Okay.
I
I'm
remember
sure
the
it's on
MLB
the
doing it this month.
Well, that's my fucking problem. Because here's the thing. If you check the tapes, I've said this like months ago. And then last week, MLB Dream Bracket, whose best is the best, sponsored by motherfucking DraftKings.
All right.
That's right. Pisses me off because they took my idea.
Okay, that is absolutely robbery because you have been talking about this for a while, at
Right,
least in
and-
some way, shape, or form with this.
And
exact
I will
idea.
give them credit for like they're doing a good job. They added on the AL side, they added all the all stars from the Negro leagues, and on the NL side, they added in all the stars who are under 25, just so they have a chance. You know, your Vlad Juniors and people like that, and they've had everyone play out in a simulation. You know, best of 7 and advancing on.
Mhm.
So it's fantastic. I'm just saying, Ben Baseball's waiting for his check, DraftKings.
I'm going to put it out there that we are willing to reward listeners for finding when Ben Baseball said this and bringing it to our attention because there's way too much fucking content for me to go through out there to do it. So
Yeah.
we will make it worth your while. That's for sure.
I have a general observation. Ben, great job calling that out. But this is not related to the content of that. I would just say that when I hear Ben curse, it something inside me lights up because I curse all the time and it like kind of doesn't mean anything anymore. But it's like if Jerry Seinfeld told a dirty joke, you would just laugh so hard because he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
And Ben cursing just now really made me laugh quite nicely.
Like, you know, he's fired up whenever he's dropping a curse word. Like,
Yeah.
we're not messing around in that case.
No, we're not crying wolf.
No.
No, and you could, that's something to check the tapes on. It's probably less than a dozen times that I swear on this podcast.
I mean, it's, very few whatsoever. It's really remarkable. So I agree. Like, that made me laugh too, just because I knew that Ben was really about to drive home a point, and here we are.
It's like a trump card.
Exactly. But that's
So-
bullshit that they ripped you off,
Stop
though.
using that term.
Do y'all want to know who made the top 8 in MLB's dream bracket?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, so let's talk about this.
So, first off, it's worth noting that Sam and my team, the Texas Rangers, lost in the first round to Justin's team, the Boston Red Sox.
It's tough.
They did take it to 7 though, which is really good. Like, good try, Texas. But they're actually in the middle of playing through what would be the Elite 8. So that 8 finalist teams. On the AL side, you have the Yankees playing Houston, which the Yankees won.
Mm-hmm.
Boston playing the Chicago White Sox. Chicago won. And then in the NL to be played tomorrow, it's going to be St. Louis versus Cincinnati. I take St. Louis. And then in the other bracket is the Dodgers versus the Brewers. The Brewers being a surprise team because they beat the Giants and the Cubs. So they kind of snuck in. But I don't see them getting past the Dodgers.
So what exactly is this? Like, so give us like the
Dude,
overarching
so,
point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So MLB.com, they took the best player at each position on each team.
Okay,
and
got it. Okay. Yes.
made a lineup of it. And then they simulated on some special computer program like 7 games, including
Got it.
relief pitching, you know, like where is where. And then they had like the full bracket and schedule, and then played out all of these games.
That's awesome. I'll take Ted Williams over Paul Konerko any fucking day of the week, though. I'll tell you that much.
Well, that's what's really cool about it is they do a write-up on it every time because they're sports writers and I'm sure they're bored. So, like, for example, Game 1, Red Sox over Rangers, was a tight pitcher's duel between Pedro Martinez and Charlie Huff. It was tied 1-1 going to the bottom of the 6th, but David Ortiz came up with a game-winning blast, a 2-run shot on a 3-2 pitch by Huff with 2 outs, and then it goes on. But it's interesting because you'll see, like, you know, Nolan Ryan pitching against Cy Young. You know what I mean? Just ridiculous.
Awesome. That's incredible. That's awesome. Well, but like I said, this is not a new idea. You've had this for a long ass time.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that they run with it. But like, I haven't changed my phone number. Just call me first.
I know, and that's the other thing. Like, I feel like if you look at like I don't understand how you get to. I guess I would have to see more of the simulations, but I don't understand how you get to some of those defeats based on, I guess, just overall strength. I don't.
Because they play the simulations. Like,
Well, I
you can
get that,
stream them
but-
on MLB Twitch, and I'm sure you could bet on them on DraftKings if you wanted to. Like, otherwise they wouldn't be involved.
I'm all set on
It's
that.
just random numbers, like random dice rolls against the stat lines of the players historically. It's not like fucking rocket science.
Well, I get that, but it's just interesting. I'd be interested to see what all goes into like the actual calculations to figure out how these things happen and all that. I'd be interested in the science behind it.
Next week on The Outfielder, numbers and how do they work?
Projections and forecasting right here. No, I do. So one thing, I'm glad you brought up kind of like the tournament bracket style. So we're going to go through the actual game by game breakdown next week of our tournament. I'm in the middle of simulating all of them right now. So we will have
Super
those
exciting.
answers.
Yeah, the recap is this is our second round. We simulated this season. So it's going to be the 20 and 20 baseball season that is currently not happening with 2020 rosters, updated parks. Like we want it to be as legit as possible. So
Right.
take that, MLB and DraftKings.
Sam, let me ask you, how have you been faring without fantasy baseball? Because it stinks for me.
I'm just like speculating wildly in the stock market now.
Awesome. Just taking one vice for another. I love it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's the same concept, just doing my research on the fundamentals.
Yep. I mean, it makes sense. Ben, I mean, this would have been your third year going into playing fantasy, right?
Yes, this would have been my third year actually playing and my second year in the majors because the
Okay.
first year I wasn't able to join y'all's because I was the new guy and I get it. I'm still a lovable rookie, but I'm happy to have been included and invited.
Well, now you are going to have actually more seniority in our league this year than other people. So, had we been playing it,
Yeah.
that would have been.
And last year I didn't come in last place. That was all I wanted was to just not be last. And I think I was 6th of 10, maybe
Yeah, you
7th
did
of
good.
10.
Hasn't one-eared Ivan only come in last like twice, but he's lost just like an absurd amount of games.
Yeah, his win percentage is like below 200, I think.
But he's only come in last like twice in 5 or 6 years or whatever it's been.
All about those playoffs, man.
It's unbelievable. It's not fair. It's really not. Well, I wanted to break down the Red Sox investigation report because it finally came out. Let me ask you guys before we get into it, what was the fanfare like around it for you? Because obviously, like in my circles as a fan, I hear about this like immediately and all the fallout of it. But like, have you guys heard much about this at all?
Well, to reset, there wasn't a ton. Like we had all been talking about it for months and months and months, and we've been waiting for this for damn near 90 days since the Astros stuff came down.
Yeah.
And it always had been, this is what happened in Houston. This is what the fallout was, even for people who are no longer in Houston, like Alex Cora. Just wait and see, because there will be a Red Sox report soon. Like that
Right.
was the build up to it.
Right.
And I got to tell you, it came out with a whimper.
I mean, but how could it not? Like, isn't everything just kind of being dumped in the news cycle right now that comes out like this? That's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's all kind of whitewashed considering what we're kind of dealing with on a bigger scale level right now.
It's like, what are you
Yes.
expecting when we're in a global pandemic?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it doesn't really matter about, I don't know. It does seem minimalized and trivialized. And I'm sure baseball loves that.
Which is really frustrating. And I'm not a Houston supporter or a Houston denier, but like, Jesus Christ, if it happened in two cities and one city took it in the shorts and the other one's like, I'm walking on sunshine.
Well, we're going to break down the specifics of what they found. And I'm going to reserve my opinion for after we get done with that. So that way I don't taint the actual report in any way. Is that a fair? Well, I mean, I'm a fan of the team. So
I think it's a fair headline. I think that though, when it comes to judgment, okay, let's go through it. Let's see, because I
want you to tell
this.
me. That's why I don't want to put anything in your head. I don't want to say what I think about it yet because I don't want to put anything in your head as far as.
So
like
do you want
judgment.
Sam and I to go first? Do you want to go through the
No,
report? And
we'll
then
go through
talk?
the
Like, how-
report and then we'll
okay.
talk about where we're at. But I want to like.
There's no
just-
moral high ground here. It doesn't matter.
Right. It does not matter. And that's what this comes down to. But we'll go through the actual report. I want to read some of like the evidential stuff out, like the evidence stuff out to you guys, kind of like we did with the Houston report. And that way we're kind of treating it the same way. And I'm not putting I don't want to put any actual opinions out there until we've actually gone through it. Because that's not fair
Okay.
to you guys.
I love it.
So you guys have overviewed the report. So essentially this thing was dropped what did we say, Ben? Thursday?
Thursday, I think. Yeah.
Thursday from the commissioner's office, just dropped on their website, just like they did with the Astros investigation. and they went through some of the high-level talking points. But essentially, I'm going to go through the high-level talking points first, and we can dive down into more of the details of some of these things as we go. Sound good?
Love it.
All right. So remember, this comes from the Office of the Commissioner. So in other words, from Rob Manfred. Says, following an exhaustive investigation into allegations of improper use of the video replay room by the Boston Red Sox, I have come to the following conclusions. Number one, I find that J.T. Watkins, the Red Sox video replay system operator, on at least some occasions during the 2018 regular season, utilized the game feeds in the replay room in violation of MLB regulations to revise sign sequence information that he had permissibly provided to players prior to the game. Number two, I find that unlike the Houston Astros 2017 conduct, in which players communicated to the batter from the dugout area in real time the precise type of pitch about to be thrown, Watkins' conduct, by its very nature, was far from limited in scope and impact. Far more limited in scope and impact. The information was only relevant when the Red Sox had a runner on second base, and they put in parentheses, which was 19.7% of plate appearances league-wide in 2018, and Watkins communicated sign sequences in a manner that indicated that he decoded them from the in-game feed in only a small percentage of those occurrences. Number three, I do not find that then manager Alex Cora, the Red Sox coaching staff, the Red Sox front office, or most of the players on the 2018 Red Sox knew or should have known that Watkins was utilizing in-game video to update the information that he learned from his pregame analysis. Communication of these violations was episodic and isolated to Watkins and a limited number of Red Sox players only. And finally, I find that the Red Sox front office consistently communicated MLB's sign-stealing rules to non-player staff and made commendable efforts towards instilling a culture of compliance in their organization. That's the executive summary to start. So not nearly as scathing, I feel like, right?
They're just ready to be done with this.
Absolutely.
Like, they're just like shelling some tech, right? I mean, who told them to do that? Who orchestrated this whole scheme?
We'll get into it in a second. We'll get into the details of it, but I mean, Ben, where's your head at just in the talking points to start?
Well, I can't think of a kinder way of saying freaking horse malarkey.
Okay. Well, we'll get in. Let's keep going though, and
We can keep going.
We can keep going because a lot of this stuff is substantiated through actual evidence. So that matters.
Actual evidence.
Yeah.
No, here's the thing. Like, you have it's like when Upton Sinclair's The Jungle and you're asking the meatpacking industry to police the meatpacking plant.
Sure, but like that's a general MLB compliance thing. Like that matters.
I'm with you. And I don't doubt that this JT Watkins, whoever, he did this.
Mm-hmm.
I just find it hard to believe that he did it on his own volition and didn't tell anyone. That's like saying, let me see how fast my car can go. Oh, but I sure as shit ain't going to race anyone. Like, that's just not, if you're trying to race, you're trying to race.
So in other words, you're already decided before you've heard the actual facts and evidence of what we're actually going to talk about here.
Wow.
Well,
no,
I mean,
you
that's
asked me where my head was at, and I'm sharing where my head was at.
No, I mean, I mean, that's
you
what
want to
you
have
said,
your
though.
cake and eat it too. I got it. That's fine. Is
No.
that how they do it in Boston?
No, that's what you said, though, because you said that you wanted to reserve judgment, but you've already made a judgment about whether they're guilty based on another investigation that you haven't heard yet.
No. Not based on another investigation, based on what you've read to me so far.
Okay. All right. That's fair. It's fair. Sam, any
JT
thoughts?
Watkins sounds like he was in the jungle, by the way.
Oh,
he sounds like
absolutely.
one of the meat packers.
Well, and I was glad that Ben brought up Upton Sinclair there, too, because he does sound like someone that would work in one of the meat packing industries at that point in time.
Yes. And he sounds like he could be Madison Bumgarner's alias when he's rodeo riding.
True. So I do want to go over just real quick the actual punishments, which, again, like I don't want to. I'm not going to put my thoughts out there until we get done with this. But I want everything to be heard in the same light that the Astros were heard in. So I think that's important here because they're interconnected. All right. So Watkins is suspended without pay for the 2020 and 2020, or the 2020 season and the 2020 postseason, which we've talked about already on this show is crazy if the season doesn't end up happening in some way that all these people are going to end up not serving suspensions. That's crazy to me. That's bullshit. But regardless, that is what it is. No other Red Sox personnel will be disciplined, although the commissioner's office agreed not to discipline players who were truthful in their interviews based on the findings of the investigation. That is not the case in which I would have otherwise considered imposing discipline on players. The club must be held accountable, particularly since the club may have benefited from the conduct. As a result, I've determined that they shall forfeit a second-round pick in 2020 first-year player draft. That's a ridiculous penalty no matter what we're talking about here, right?
How give me your parameters on ridiculous.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
that's nothing. That doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
I told you guys the other day I will gladly exchange a second round pick for a ring easily. Wouldn't you?
Are you saying that the cheating got them the ring?
No, I'm not. But I'm just saying if that's what we're
Sounds
trying
like
to
it.
say here,
Well,
then
that's what
that's
the tape said.
I'll gladly do it. All right, so it goes into the whole. So I want to go over kind of the overview of the actual investigation. It's really the same type of thing we talked about with the Astros, where they drummed up the Department of Investigations, which Sam and I mused about. I love that the MLB has a Department of Investigations. Ben, how many people do you think are involved in the MLB Department of Investigations? Like,
I think it was one dude, and they had to upstep to 3. And now with COVID hitting, like 2 of them have lost their jobs already.
they're working from home,
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's great.
trying to get David Ortiz to answer my phone calls.
But you've been having issues with the phone. The DOI interviewed 65 witnesses, including 34 current and former players. Some witnesses were interviewed multiple times. So the Major League Baseball Players Association also provided attorney to speak on behalf of 20 or fewer players. 10 players who played fewer than 20 games in that 2018 season, each of whom provided no material information. As a result, every player who was active on the Red Sox roster during the 2018 season was afforded the opportunity to provide information. The Department of Investigations also reviewed tens of thousands of emails, text messages, video clips, and photographs. The Red Sox fully cooperated, blah, 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 blah. All right, so that's kind of the parameters around what they did. Any questions about, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing, right, that they did for the Astros. Is that fair? I mean,
Yeah, this sounds like they're going over the methodology. That's fine.
yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get into a little bit of the specifics here. So I kind of went in and highlighted some of these just so we could sum them up a little quicker. So we're going to go focus on the JT Watkins situation of it first, and we kind of move from there. So JT Watkins, a member of the Red Sox advanced scouting staff, was responsible for attempting to decode an opposing team's sign sequences prior to and after the completion of the game, which was, in parentheses, and is, permissible under the rules. Watkins conveyed the sign sequence information he learned from pregame work to players in a meeting prior to the game or sometimes during the game. The issue in this case stems from the fact that Watkins, the employee responsible for decoding the opponent's signs prior to and following the game, also was the person stationed in the replay room during the game to advise the manager on whether to challenge a play on the field or not. So that is actually kind of interesting because I've always wondered, who are they actually consulting with of like, who do we challenge or why do we challenge a play?
So yeah, I'm good so far because hey, every team has a sign guy pre and post games. Like all of that seems, I'm not concerned about fire at this point.
Right. I'm with you. Sam, any thoughts so far?
No.
Pretty straightforward. I mean, I think every team kind of has some form of that, right?
Yeah.
Therefore, Watkins, who was an expert at decoding sign sequences for video, had access to a live feed during the game that he could have, if he so chose, used to supplement or update the work he had performed prior to the game to decode an opponent's signs. Watkins vehemently denied utilizing the replay system. Of course he did, by the way. During the game to decode signs. Of the 44 players who provided information, more than 30 stated that they had no knowledge regarding whether Watkins used in-game video feeds to revise his advanced sign decoding work. However, a small number of players said that at least on some occasions, they suspected or had indications that Watkins may have revised the sign sequence information that he had provided to players prior to the game through his review of the game feed in the replay room.
So time out there.
Yep.
Because that to me, that's a sentence that in my summaries that I'd read of it really stands out.
Yeah, we start to veer off the level of honesty here a little bit, right?
So, yeah, of the 44 players who spoke to MLB investigators, more than 30. Okay, well, if it's more than 30, let's just assume 31. Okay. That means the inverse of that, 13 players. 13 players is more than 10% of your staff. So more than 10% of the staff suspected that Watkins was doing this.
Not staff, just players, though, just to make sure we're,
More than 10% of the players. Yeah, I was referring to staff. Yeah,
Right.
Yep, you're right.
No,
more
just
than
making sure.
10% of your freaking lineup.
It's a good point, Sam.
Shit, that's more than 20%.
That's how
'Cause they have a
numbers work.
50 How
It's a
many
lot.
people are on a baseball team?
It's a lot. Yeah, no, you can have 25 guys in the clubhouse at a time. So then the rosters, that gets really tricky as far as like the actual
As far as
composition.
when, but
Yeah.
okay, well, okay, all right. I'm just
But-
saying, like,
Yeah.
there's smoke there.
I'm
and I
with
don't
you.
care what JT Watkins says.
Yes. No, I agree, and that's why I said, of course, he's going to say that. Like,
Yeah,
you know.
you want to be honest? Start with a name, not an initial. What are you hiding?
The other thing that struck me, and is just something along the way to note that struck me, is what, like, if they knew all this was coming, what keeps the players from all banding together and saying this is the story, right? I mean, that's a fair thing to wonder.
Collusion.
Yeah. What? I mean, it's in everybody else's best interest, right?
Yeah.
All right.
But they know they're immune, right? After the Astros thing, they don't have to have a fucking fully fledged story.
Right, which plays in too, and I think that's very fair to consider. Let's see. So therefore, the narrow issue before me is whether Watkins, on at least some occasions during the 2018 season, utilized the game feed from the replay room to supplement or revise the sign sequence information that he provided to players prior to the game. After carefully considering all of the evidence, which is summarized below, I find that Watkins, on at least some occasions, utilized the game feeds in the replay room to supplement and revise sign sequence information that he provided to players prior to the game.
So let's pause there
Yep.
because first off, he's the one who made the scope of this narrow. Like, Manfred can't say, well, we're only looking at a narrow thing here. It's like, calm down. You're the one who's choosing the scope of this.
Sure, but what? So how else would you look at it?
I don't know. More than narrow?
Well, when you got a stretched MLB investigations team, right? What are you going to do?
True, but also there has to be some, like, in something like this, when it comes to like contracts and like all that crap, like in the legalese of all of it, there's got to be some kind of like thing you've got to focus in on. And what it sounds like he's trying to make just based on what it sounds like to me, he's trying to make the distinction between it's not illegal to decode signs and do all that, but to use those feeds during the game to pass on that information in real time
Right.
makes a difference.
I hear that. And I'm just saying, if he was doing this, which the league report says he was, he passed it on to someone. Yet JT Watkins is the only individual named thus far.
Right. And so I'll go into a couple other factors here that kind of dive down on that just a little bit. But I kind of almost, it strikes me as funny that Sam's first reaction was, so they're just finding a scapegoat, because that's kind of what I thought as I read through this whole thing, to be real honest with you guys, because it felt like they found one guy. But there is a lot of evidence to back up some stuff, so we'll go into that, but it's just funny that was your first inference. First, it appears that, so I'll kind of headline this. He said, I considered a number of factors in determining the appropriate discipline to be imposed on Watkins and the club. First, it appears that Watkins' communication of sign information evidently decoded from the replay station was episodic and was done without the knowledge of the manager, the coaching staff, and most of the players.
So would episodic be anytime there was a runner on second? That's episodic.
Well, it wasn't
20% of the time, apparently.
Well, but that's league wide too. But so we'll get into that specific detail here in just a second, because that's another bullet point we're coming upon. And most of the players, but it was the first time that Watkins was found to have. It was not the first time that Watkins was found to have violated MLB's rules. Watkins was a key participant in the Apple Watch incident that happened in late 2017, when the Red Sox admitted to using a smartwatch to communicate opposing clubs' decoded signs from the replay room to the dugout. So that's not great that guy was involved in that the first time. And that's what stemmed a lot of this in the first place.
I mean, Alex Cora is a big player in this, right? I mean, he was on the Astros club doing the same shit. Now all of a sudden the Red Sox are doing it. I mean,
But that's really important though. This is not the same thing. It's very different. And we haven't gotten there yet.
that makes it worse, I think.
So hold on. He was or wasn't decoding signs? Because that's what was happening in Houston.
Wait, what now? Sorry?
In Houston, you had someone decoding signs mid-game
Yep.
and then using a mechanism, in this case a trash can, to communicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what we're hearing in the report...
Hold on. That's a ridiculous sentence to say, by the
my
way.
God, yes.
It's still,
that's like peak 2020. And then in Boston, based on the report, there was someone understanding and decoding signs mid-game and communicating them.
but
So far, I don't see much of a difference.
But we haven't gone into the specifics of how that was happening for you to see the difference. So that's a fair assumption, is my point. All right, to your credit. All right, so he was involved in the first one. Second, unlike the Astros' conduct or 2017 conduct, in which players communicated to the batter in real time the precise type of pitch about to be thrown, Watkins' conduct, by its very nature, was far more limited in scope and impact. That was in the kind of the highlight points. To the extent Watkins used in-game video to decode sign sequence information, the information he obtained was the cue for the actual pitch's sign among the many signs flashed by the catcher when a Red Sox runner was on second base, and then he includes the 19.7% of the time league-wide. And Watkins communicates sign sequences to evidently decoded from the in-game feed in only a small percentage of those occurrences. And when Watkins utilized in-game video to revise his advanced work, the information was only useful if the opposing team did not again change their signs in a sequence after Watkins passed along the information to players, and only then if the Red Sox base runner was able to recognize the sequence provided by Watkins and also inform the batter that through a gesture that he understood correctly. So in other words,
at least 13 people who were baseball players on the Red Sox were involved with Watkins, and Watkins would.
They said that they had reason to believe that may happen because of times when sign sequences that they had provided before the game because of a certain pitcher may have updated or changed. That's the issue at hand here.
And it sounds like if I'm not communicating to whoever is at the plate, that doesn't mean that he's not communicating with whoever's in the batter's box. Say I have a man on second.
That's the point of sealing signs.
Right. But if I'm doing it in game with a digital advantage after I've already been slapped on the wrist for doing it digitally earlier in the year, and I know, allegedly, that my coach was doing this in Houston, I mean, it's just they're painting a picture.
Right, but the difference is here that you have. So essentially, you're taking data that you're essentially mixing what is okay with not okay pretty minutely. So that way, you have to really pick it apart to figure it out, and that's the whole point of a scheme like this. But the point really is, and the differentiating factor here is, you had to change those things up, and that assumes that the pitcher and catcher doesn't change their signs up, which happens a lot because of this.
Yeah,
and because they know that, and only if he can relay that to second and then back to the batter's box versus banging on a trash can twice when a fastball's happening.
Or directly to the batter in the batter's box, which is far more condemning.
Right. But like, how do you communicate that? They had to bang on a trash can or use buzzers or whatever the hell they were using. This is different than that. And that's the biggest differentiator in these two, in my mind. Is it all a bunch of bullshit, minutia, like gray area crap? Absolutely. But it is what it is.
It's far more advanced, right? If they're having to communicate outside of a crude mechanism like banging on a trash can, like they have signs to communicate signs. So that's more.
It's like Inception level shit.
Well, That's where, to me, it's like, oh, cool. They cheated in a very similar way to how Houston cheated, but they're not being punished nearly as harshly.
But it didn't have the effect. There's not a possibility that it had effect on the game nearly as much as knowing banging on a trash can, knowing a fastball's absolutely coming. Versus,
and I'm not saying strip the ring. Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is they cheated in the same season that they won the World Series. similar to how the Astros cheated, albeit more, in the same season that they won the World Series, right?
Sure.
That's not a good look.
No, none of this is a good look. I don't know why you think I'm saying it is. I don't want to be
'Cause it
talking
sounds
about
like
this
you're
at all.
defending Alex Cora.
No, I don't
He
think
got canned.
he
Right?
got canned, but
and that's a big reason in my mind why there's not more of a punishment, because he's already gone. Like
Yeah,
in
but-
the eyes of the MLB during all this COVID shit, like justice has been served. He's jobless.
No, yeah, but he's only jobless for another 6 months.
Yeah, it's true.
and
So I feel like there seems to be, hey, if we're going to delay this 3 months after the Houston one, let's do some more digging, because there's probably something else going on with Cora. It
So-
seems like a stretch to believe that someone who we know was key in orchestrating a cheating scandal at another club, when moving to a different club where they're also doing a similar type of cheating, was not involved.
but also understand how dangerous it is to sit there and just dig on somebody and dig and dig and dig and dig. Like, you're going to do whatever you're going to do to come up with stuff like that. Like, that happens on its own now, but like, that's not the point of this. It's an investigation as to what the team did, not necessarily just one individual. It's
I'm with
everything,
you.
everybody.
He was leading the team, and
We haven't
for
gotten to
someone-
that part either yet. We're not done with the report yet.
to someone who said you're not defending him, it sounds like you're defending him.
No, I'm defending it because we're not like there's no objectivity whatsoever going into this. Like, you had told me before we even started that you decided they were guilty of this before we'd even gone through the report.
Well, we
The
all knew
report
that
says they're
already.
guilty. So,
It actually doesn't, but
so why is Watkins suspended for being not guilty?
he's the one that's suspended. But so it shows here that the team in this report, it shows that team did their due diligence to make sure that they were illustrating organizational control at all points in time, distributing memos, making sure that the management staff and the coaching staff was communicated that this stuff is not acceptable, and there is actual ample evidence of that throughout this entire report. That
Because
stuff makes a
baseball
difference.
players love reading memos.
Sure.
right?
Hey, but like do you read every single memo that comes across your desk? I feel
You
like
bet your ass I do. I hate people who don't read those memos.
Well,
I write.
but you
half
just
of
made
them,
the
and I
point
read every
against it,
fucking
though.
one.
But
I'm just saying-
you just told me that they don't read it. So like, that's the point. Is like, I know you do,
But
but most people don't.
But institutional organizational controls in memo form or paper trail form may or may not be effective. Point in case, Wells Fargo, they were telling their people don't do this, but their people were doing it. So potentially in Houston, if there's emails, or in Boston, if there's emails saying don't do this, like, don't tell me that because I sent an email that someone is or isn't going to adhere to what I'm putting in the writing.
Sure, but like, that's what you agree to as an employee of an employer. That's just how that works. Like,
Okay.
like, everybody has to abide by those things. That's not different because you're a baseball player, is my point.
In this podcaster's opinion,
Mhm.
this feels like they got a fall guy. Manfred went easy because he's sick of dealing with this.
And
Boston
Cora's already
probably
taken care of.
Cora is already out. Boston is a more marketable team. They're sick of running around with egg on their face. So let's release a press release when there's 60,000 Americans dying of a global pandemic. And
That they started, by the way, to cover this whole thing up.
Obviously,
false.
obviously.
Let's just for the tape on that one. But you know what I mean? Like, that's where, at least in my opinion,
Mhm.
this stinks.
Sure, but what also stinks is that you're not willing to listen to anything other than the contrary. Like, that's my point. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I mean, like I told you, I don't want to be sitting here reading this fucking report about my team. I don't want to fucking do that because I don't want that to be the case, but it is, and that's why I have the balls to sit here and do it and defend like things that happen, because there are differences in this report versus what happened with the Astros. And
I agree.
it hasn't been treated as such.
And I said that. I said crystal clear that there are differences. I even gave the point that Houston was likely cheating more than Boston was.
That's fair. You did.
So don't die on that hill as though I didn't say that.
No, I'm just saying, like, I want to make sure that we're giving all of this a fair shake, and we did that with the Astros too, and we criticized the shit out of them. Like I said, I don't
Still
think
do.
that exactly, and I don't think that Boston's necessarily innocent. I think that they wanted this to go the fuck away, but like that's, that is what this is what the report says. I'm not making this up and trying to die on some hill that I don't necessarily even want to talk about.
Well, then let's find that hill and let's see where do you land based on the report. Based on the report, and I admire your willingness to be objective. And if the bullseye or target was ever on any of us or Sensible Loud Media or the outfield or anything like that, that's all we want is objectivity.
Mm-hmm.
However, given what you've read so far,
Mm-hmm.
what we've read, what we saw in Houston with someone who at least was cheating in Houston, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Now
That's our
where
baseline.
do you? That's our baseline.
Yeah.
We are all three in agreement.
So okay. Do you want me to keep going with the report, or do you want to know where I stand on it?
I want to know where you stand because I feel like I know, but I don't. I want to continue to give you the benefit of the doubt
To defend it,
because
sure.
it's
That's what we're doing here. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I fall somewhere in the middle of this, to be real honest with you. I don't think they're innocent by any stretch of the imagination. I'm really well aware that there is a mass benefit for getting this out of the news and just being done with this and moving on and finding somebody to pin it on and moving on. I think I don't ever discount things like that. And you shouldn't. Like, you should never just assume that everybody's acting with noble intent, even though it's best to try to live your life that way. But it's people stink, right? And there's definitely bullshit things that were going on here, but I just don't think that it even comes close to equating to what the Astros did. And whenever you're sitting there looking at measures that are supposed to be taken, regardless of how you feel about measures for organizational control and whether they're effective or not, those are still measures that are put in place so that everybody can act on the best faith. Like in Sam's example, he reads every memo because that's what you're supposed to fucking do. That's the point. And you have to, as an employee, know that your employer is getting those things out to you, and you should take those seriously. And there are plenty of, as you go through this report, there are plenty of actual examples of meetings and things of actual compliance discussions to make sure that we're operating within the rules. And that was actually what was probably most surprising to me, because I kind of expected it to be more reckless than that, based on what I've heard so far, what happened in Houston.
I think this whole thing stinks, and we don't know what they have done based on what the Astros report said because it's been over 90 days.
Right. So say more about that.
I think that this is wildly speculative, not unlike my weird stock market plays, but they've gotten a lot of time.
Yes.
They've had a lot of time to absorb what the MLB put forth in the Astros report and potentially change the story.
Yeah.
To suit their needs.
Absolutely.
Were those memos actually distributed and on paper? They could have produced a bunch of that shit and falsified things. That's, again, wildly speculative. They had lots of time, and who knows what investigation was going on during that time. They absorbed what the Astros were handed down, and they could have done something to alter the story. That's all I'm going to say.
That's fair. And to Ben's point, they did spend a good amount of time researching it and looking into all these they did actual wipes of was it imaging of people's phones or whatever, so you can look through the context. They did all that stuff just like they did with the Astros. So those standards didn't change. But you're right. There's a huge incentive for this to go away. And there's ample time for people to kind of forget about the minutia of the Astros report and kind of minimalize that down to know, because there were a lot of things when that report came out that kind of went off the rails and bad PR wise. This felt way more buttoned up to me.
Yeah, we fired Tim from accounting.
No, they just suspended Tim. They didn't even fire Tim.
Yeah, okay. They did.
Which, of course.
And there's a lot of.
So here's
Ben, I love you, by the way. You know that.
Thank you. You too, man. Here's the thing is whenever it boils down to it, though, and Justin, if we go back and listen to any of our podcasts, whenever there's a controversy, you are crystal clear at saying follow the money.
Yes.
So in this case, let's follow the money and see.
Let's do it. I fucking hate the Red Sox ownership. Let's fucking do it. Let's go.
So like, in all honesty, like there's good financial incentive for both the Red Sox and MLB to sort of, hey, I'm going to nudge you on the shoulder and, why don't you here next week, I'm going to ask you for some emails. This is the type of thing you might want to send me.
Oh, yeah. And we're talking about the same ownership group that over in the UK, so they own Liverpool FC as well. And they gouged a bunch of fans out of tickets that for games that they had paid for that they weren't going to refund until the public backlash absolutely forced them to do so. So this is not an ownership group that is attuned to what Red Sox fans want or like. Like, this is an ownership group that thinks everybody really likes them when everyone really fucking hates them. And so, like, they're always desperate to do something to get things like this out of the press. I mean, you remember whenever they fired Alex Cora, they said next to nothing in the press conference.
Oh, yeah. They said, oh, that guy, he doesn't work here. What are you talking about?
Right. We're going to wait for the investigation to conclude. Here it is. One dude from the camera room gets, punished. So like I said, I think overall, my opinion is it's somewhere in between. It's not all one way. It's not all the other either. And I know that's kind of
so
like
they didn't
do what?
So you don't, which side, where, so the middle, what's the spectrum here?
So based on, if you take piece by piece of the report, I would say that Alex Cora should have no problem getting another job. And if the Red Sox understood what people wanted, I think they should hire him back, but they would never do that. They're not attuned to that. Because honestly, like this is something that he did in Houston with another team. If he's going to get fired, he should get fired for that, not for what didn't happen in Boston. What did or didn't happen, I should say. I corrected myself. Don't look at me like that. Did or did not
happen.
happen.
Happened in both places, and he was in charge in both places.
He was not in charge in both
did.
places.
They both did.
No, he was not in charge in both places, though.
He had some manner of authority.
He did.
He's a manager.
Right.
He wasn't assistant to the regional manager.
Sure, but he was a bench coach before. We can't just mix up things and just say that they were when they weren't.
No, you're right. The bench coach still has the word coach in it.
Manager doesn't have the word coach in it either, buddy.
He's not the fucking equipment manager, okay?
I know, I
you
love
get
it.
the point. He's not like Hoggy on the Rangers.
Do we like
Exactly.
that? Sidebar, do we like that, like, they're not called coaches in baseball?
It needs to be interchangeable. It's 2020.
Right? And I also think it's kind of dumb they have to wear a uniform, but we can get into that later. But
I'm a
Should all be
little
wearing
bit of
suits.
yes.
I really like this point because I like that it's different so that I can call people out who don't know baseball. Like, oh, the coach. I'm like, that's the manager.
That's a
you idiot.
very good point. That might be the best point you've ever made on this show.
Oh, I love that.
Let's put him in like a 1930s like wool 3-piece,
Oh, yeah. But anyway,
like a boater hat and a big cigar.
I do recommend if you're interested in it to go out and read it specifically, though, and really read through the way that they put things, because to Ben, to your credit and what you're saying, like, there's a lot here that doesn't smell great and that doesn't feel great, but it's definitely not to the degree as far as lack of organizational control. And I think, Sammy, you'd asked about like kind of the spectrum. I think that is really important to note here is they were able to demonstrate more organizational control than Houston, where that thing may have ran all the way up to the GM. And that
What about the COVID component?
okay, so let's flush this out a little bit more. Tell me more about this conspiracy theory you've got going on.
Oh no, I won't. That's not a good idea on the podcast, is it?
So all right. So, and Justin, to your credit, you're absolutely right. If you're looking for easy differentiators, the flow chart goes, was there cheating? Yes. Okay. Now that we're over here, was there a trash can? And then the Red Sox and Astros delineate pretty clearly and easily at that one.
Yeah, that's
But-
very true.
But there was cheating.
Yeah.
And there was the same type of cheating with similar people in authority,
Mhm.
and both teams won the World Series. And my shit don't stink. The Rangers were likely doing something similar.
Sure.
And other teams were likely doing. So, like, don't come at me and saying, well, what about your steroid drinking Rangers? Blah, 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 blah. Like,
I
no,
love that.
calm
Got it.
down. But, all right.
Yeah,
What
no,
were
I'm
you gonna
with
say,
you.
Sam?
Like,
Get your hand up.
and Ben, that's an incredibly fair observation and point. Like that's from an outsider's perspective of like I said, a lot of this is just minutia, and it's meant to kind of make the mind tired brain, if you will. And I think like that almost tells you whenever you start getting too detailed, like what's really going on here. And I know like if it were the other way and we didn't have enough detail, then there would be outrage over that too, right? But like I just, when you bare bones break it down like that, that's very true. But it's also a manner in how the organizations acted, and that matters to me in the grand scheme of how this looks on the sport. And again, not to say that that defends it by any means, but just it's a renegade franchise versus a renegade few players or whatever, and that can matter in the grand scheme of it. And it's all about money. You're 100% correct about that, though.
So I'd like to bring up a point that I don't think we've discussed, and that is there's like a lot more bad PR around the Astros scandal.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's all these YouTube clips of like trash can bangs, right?
Hilarious.
They're just like, it's everywhere. That's going to live on forever. And the Red Sox scandal, if you can even call it that in comparison, there's no like fan driven analysis. It's invisible cheating. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I think that plays a part in the decision to downplay the penalties.
So in other words, what you're saying is like there's a lot of incentive to being better at it, and the fact that it's not so easily identifiable, you don't have the footage to go back on. Is that kind of where your head's at?
Yeah,
Okay.
The Red Sox is a more complex scheme. They're not using a crude method like banging on a trash can.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they hit it a hell of a lot better.
And the other thing
And
too
they didn't
is
make a mockery of it all over YouTube.
well, the other thing to their credit is that, and one of the bigger differentiators for me is there's not this in-game pitch by pitch, like this is what it's going to be, versus like you have to have a runner on second, so you have to be in this very specific situation. They have to have not changed the signs. You have to be able to decode those signs quick enough and pass that through several people. And like versus like we don't even know if the Astros were wearing like a buzzer or not. Like that's a very big different. I mean, regardless, it's still cheating no matter how you want to slice it up, and I think that's Ben's point. But like that's a very different system. And I mean, there's a covert way that they went about this thing, obviously, and it just feels more minimalistic than real-time pitch. Like, this is going to be a fastball to me. There's still work in understanding how the system works, and you still have to rely on the fact that maybe they didn't change their signs, and hopefully they didn't, kind of thing.
So as a Red Sox fan,
Yep.
in your lifetime, they've won 4 titles?
Yes.
Okay. Does this one get tarnished, in your opinion?
I don't care. I mean, well, I definitely don't care because the report goes on to talk about the 2018 postseason, and that's when they put the MLB people in the actual locker room or the replay booth and all that stuff. So that could not happen in any way, shape, or form.
So
But it
it's
was
almost
shown in
like
this.
people were cheating, and so they put someone in the booth.
Well, right, and I was going to say, and it was shown that he had the access to get that information, even when accesses were taken away when they realized, oh, this was happening, but that didn't continue into the postseason. So he had the access to do it. Like, there's no debating that was what was happening there.
So Boston in 18, they were the wild card team, right?
No, they won 108
won like
games.
112 games or something,
Yeah.
right?
I thought it was 105. And I thought
108.
that was also the year. Okay. All right,
Yeah.
never mind.
108
bad.
and 112, I think, I forget how it all played out.
That's
but-
right. I think you had them as the wild card in our predictions.
That's what it
that
was.
was what it was.
Yeah. So pretty crazy. I don't know. Whatever it is, what it is. It doesn't seem to matter to baseball. So why should I care as a fan, right? Like,
Well, that's the thing is it should matter to baseball. And here's the thing. You, me, Sam, all of us, our good friend Jimmy Midtown, Duster Dan, who now runs a YouTube LaCroix channel. Like, there is plenty of people who care about the sport who are deeply interested in this.
yeah,
However, I'm going to say that if we zoom out, this is at best the 3rd most popular sport in America. And you now have the potential of 2, not just 1, but 2 of your World Series teams having at least asterisked or tarnish marks next to their world championship. It is not a good look for baseball.
no.
It's not a good look for them to release this report during a global pandemic, to sweep it under the rug. It's not a good report to release it's not a good look to release a report where you try to get people lost in the minutia, to focus on, splitting hairs in order to compare trash cans versus TJ. Like, the whole thing is not a good look overall. for the sake of Major League Baseball. And that to me is a damn shame.
No, 100%. I agree with that. That like none of this makes it okay. That I think that's what I overall want to get across from my point of view is none of this is okay. None of this is something that I would like to see out of any team, period. Like that's not the way this is supposed to be done. I'm also not naive enough to think that this kind of stuff doesn't happen. And I very much understand the financial gain that matters in World Series championships or any championship in any sport whatsoever or anything like that. So that's kind of where I'm at on it.
No, fair point. Sam?
Any other
I have
closing
nothing else
thoughts?
to add. I'm just sick of the cheating. I'm ready for baseball to start.
Feels like it's been dragged out for a long time because of all this.
Yeah, I wish there were more penalties, but at the same time, I don't. Like baseball has enough problems, and I don't want the third most popular sport, to become the fifth most popular sport because of all the cheating.
It's very, very true.
Hockey and Major League Soccer are coming for us. Well, if you like what you're hearing, make sure to check us out on sensiblyloud.com. Plus, we are all over your social media. And guess what? We're pissed off and we still have things to talk about and we want to engage with you. Don't forget to sign on and check out our lawn care competition and see if you can tell A, whose lawn is whose, and B's, whose looks the best. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us out a ton. Huge props to J-Mac for producing this and almost every other episode. Y'all keep it going.
We want to thank everyone for tuning in for episode 106 of the Outfielder Podcast. We would like to thank all of our fans, Sensibly Loud Media, our sponsors, and those with the sharp eye to keep the runners close. Grounds crew, please keep patrolling that outfield. Big ups to Kevin Towers. Don't text and drive, and we'll see you right back here next time on the Outfielder Podcast.